Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into one of the most epic adventures in American history, a story of courage, discovery, and a president with a vision that would forever change the shape of a nation. This is the story of the Lewis and Clark expedition, a journey into the unknown, all set in motion by the third president of the United States, Thomas Jefferson. So, picture this. It's 1803. The United States has just made the deal of a lifetime, the Louisiana Purchase. Overnight, the country doubles in size. But here's the catch. This vast new territory, stretching from the Mississippi River to the Rocky Mountains, is a massive question mark on the map. It's an enormous expanse of wilderness, completely uncharted by Americans. What was out there? What resources did it hold? Were there new plants? New animals? A fabled water route to the Pacific Ocean? President Thomas Jefferson was a man of immense curiosity. He wasn't just a politician. He was a scientist, an architect, a philosopher, and a visionary. He saw this new land not just as territory to be claimed, but as a world to be understood. He dreamed of a United States that stretched from sea to shining sea, a continental republic. But to make that dream a reality, he needed information. He needed eyes and ears on the ground. And so, in 1804, Jefferson commissioned an expedition that would become the stuff of legend. He needed leaders who were brave, resourceful, and meticulous. He turned to his personal secretary, a young army captain named Meriwether Lewis. Jefferson had known Lewis for years and trusted him completely. He saw in him a sharp mind, a resilient spirit, and a keen observer's eye. To prepare him, Jefferson sent Lewis to Philadelphia, the scientific center of the country at the time, to study botany, zoology, celestial navigation, and medicine under the nation's top experts. He needed to be more than a soldier. He needed to be a scientist in the field. But a mission this monumental couldn't be a one-man show. Lewis knew he needed a co-commander, someone he could rely on through thick and thin. He chose his old friend and former Army colleague, William Clark. Clark was an expert frontiersman, a skilled cartographer, and a natural leader of men. While Lewis was the introspective scientific mind, Clark was the pragmatic, experienced outdoorsman. Together, they were the perfect team. They assembled a crew of about 4 men, a diverse group of soldiers, woodsmen, and interpreters known as the Corps of Discovery. Their mission was clear, though daunting: explore the Missouri River, find a water route to the Pacific, document the geography, catalog new species of plants and animals, and establish peaceful relations with the Native American tribes they would encounter. Jefferson saw this not as a conquest, but as a diplomatic and scientific endeavor. In May of 1804, the Corps of Discovery set off from St. Louis, heading up the mighty Missouri River in a large keelboat and 2 smaller piers. The journey was immediately grueling. The men had to row, pole, and sometimes even pull their boats against the powerful current. They were plagued by mosquitoes, endured scorching heat, and faced the constant threat of their boats capsizing. As they ventured deeper into the wilderness, the landscape transformed. They left the familiar woodlands behind and entered the Great Plains, a vast sea of grass, teeming with animals they had never seen before. They documented prairie dogs, which they called barking squirrels, pronghorn antelope, and massive herds of bison that stretched as far as the eye could see. Clark's maps became more detailed with every passing day, filling in the blank spaces with rivers, plains, and mountain ranges. One of their most critical challenges was surviving their first winter. They built Fort Mandan in present-day North Dakota, near the villages of the Mandan and Hidatsa tribes. This turned out to be a pivotal moment. It was here they met a French-Canadian fur trader named Toussaint Charbonneau and his young Shoshone wife, a woman whose name would become legendary, Sacagawea. Sacagawea joined the expedition with her infant son, Jean-Baptiste. She was far more than just an interpreter. Her knowledge of the land and edible plants was invaluable. More importantly, her presence as a woman with a child signaled to other tribes that the Corps was a peaceful party, not a warband. She was a symbol of peace in a potentially hostile land. When spring arrived in 1805, the expedition pushed onward, facing their most formidable obstacle yet, the Rocky Mountains. They had hoped to find a simple river passage, but instead, they were confronted by a seemingly endless wall of snow-capped peaks. Their boats could go no further. They needed horses to cross the mountains, and their only hope was to find and trade with the Shoshone people, Sacagawea's tribe. In a moment that feels straight out of a Hollywood movie, as the expedition desperately searched for the Shoshone, Sacagawea recognized the landscape of her childhood. Soon after, they encountered a Shoshone band, and in an incredible twist of fate, the chief was none other than Sacagawea's long-lost brother Camille. The emotional reunion secured the expedition, the horses and supplies they desperately needed to continue. Without Sacagawea, the journey would have likely ended right there. The crossing of the Rockies was brutal. The Corps faced starvation, freezing temperatures, and treacherous terrain. They were forced to eat their horses, and then candles, just to survive. But they persevered, and finally, exhausted and emaciated, they emerged on the other side. They followed the Clearwater Snake, and finally the Columbia River. And then, in November 1805, After a year and a half of relentless travel, William Clark wrote the immortal words in his journal, "Ocean in view." Oh, the joy. They had reached the Pacific Ocean. They had done it. They built Fort Clatsop near the mouth of the Columbia River to spend another long, rainy winter before beginning the arduous journey home. The return trip in 1806 was faster, but still filled with peril. To cover more ground, Lewis and Clark split up to explore different routes through the Rockies. During this time, Lewis's party had a tense, violent encounter with a group of Blackfeet warriors, the only truly violent conflict of the entire journey. Thankfully, both parties eventually reunited safely on the Missouri River. Finally, on September 23, 1806, more than 2 years after they had departed, the cores of Discovery floated back into St. Louis. The townspeople, who had long given them up for dead, were stunned and overjoyed. They had returned as heroes. The impact of their journey was immense. Lewis and Clark had traveled over 8,000 miles. They had mapped vast territories, establishing a clear American presence in the West. They documented over 170 new plants and 120 new animals, including the grizzly bear, the coyote, and the bighorn sheep. Their detailed journals provided an invaluable record of the West's geography, its natural resources, and the cultures of dozens of Native American tribes. While they didn't find the easy water route to the Pacific that Jefferson had hoped for, they proved that an overland route was possible. Their journey fired the imagination of the American people and laid the groundwork for the westward expansion that would define the rest of the 19th century. Trappers, traders, and eventually settlers would follow the paths they blazed. The Lewis and Clark expedition remains a testament to human endurance, scientific curiosity, and the visionary leadership of President Thomas Jefferson. It was a journey that transformed a nation's understanding of itself and its continent, turning a massive question mark into a land of opportunity and a new chapter in the American story. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history. Let me know in the comments what other historical events you'd like to see covered. See you next time.